You're listening to The Real Deal Conversations, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you by sharing real stories and meaningful conversations that bring real life to the surface. I'm your host, Megan Deal. Let's dive in. All right, we are continuing in our March Madness series with Coach Chad Myers from IMG Academy in Branson. Chad, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. And so kind of give everybody a little bit of your background, your coaching background history.
Yeah, I played college basketball at Shepherd University. I did a year of prep school at Hargrave before then, and that led me right back into coaching at Hargrave. I was very fortunate. The first staff I worked on, we had a really good year. We made it to the national title game. The second year, we won a national title. And that was just kind of my dream my whole life. My dad coached. I grew up around basketball. It's something I did all day, every day. And then my goal was always to become a Division I assistant. And being at Hargrave, we had 33 Division I players and 4 NBA guys in 4 years. So it led me to make a lot of relationships and connections. And I ended up working for Brad Greenberg after that at Radford University. His brother's now Seth Greenberg that does ESPN. Yeah. So it was a great opportunity. I was 25 and a Division I assistant and a chance to kind of do everything I wanted in my dream. And then after 2 years there, just part of coaching, he ended up changing jobs, and I was kind of looking for a new job. And then I went to Massanutten Military Academy, and they had a historically good prep school with some Division I players, but we were able to take it to another level. And my second team, we had Frank Mason, and we got to number 1 in the country and just had a really good run. In 5 years I was there, we made the national tournament all 5 years. And then that took me on to go to IMG Academy, which is kind of world renowned, and everybody knows about IMG and a lot of the NBA players. And then the same thing, after 3 years there, a lot of success. We were 55-4 my first 2 years, and then led me to New Mexico State to work for Greg Heyer for a year, and then eventually back here to Branson to IMG Academy. So I'm excited to be here and hope they keep it going.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Which you guys were recently in the Tournament of Champions. So how did it go, just real quick before we get into this, how did Tournament of Champions go for you guys this year?
So great. I stayed out of the way, and our guys played really well, and we won all 3 games by double figures. Mm-hmm. So that was huge. We won the 3-point contest, the championship, and I was just kind of blown away myself. I had heard a lot and been to tournaments all over the country. We had played everywhere, and we travel everywhere and play, and everybody had kind of told me how special the Tournament of Champions is. And a good friend of mine is the head coach of Paul VI, and they had been here a bunch, and we're both from Virginia, and Coach Farella just kept saying there's nothing like the TOC, right, in the atmosphere. And then of course I was excited. Hey, we got to make it to Saturday night and play in front of the main crowd and at the big venue, and then being there, I mean, it lived up to every expectation we had, and huge for our season. It was one of our goals is to win that, anytime you get a chance to win a championship. So the experience was great for me and our players.
Yeah, it is a real fun. It's fun. We go every year. I love going. Okay, so let's kind of get into it. So we just got your background, but what inspired you to become a basketball coach, and what keeps you passionate in coaching?
I think anything you can do that you love every single day. So to me, it's not a job. There's a lot of hours, a lot more hours than, a lot of professions. But I think it's just something I love. So every day I get a chance to, go to the gym and work with young men that have the same dream that I had growing up. And when I was a little kid, everybody, your first grade teacher asks you, what do you want to be? And my dad had coached forever. He coached in the D League for a little while, coached in Division I for a year or two. Okay. So I went and told my first grade teacher, hey, I want to be a basketball coach. And then they responded to me and said, hey, you can't get paid to just be a basketball coach. You got to do something else. And I was like, well, my dad has a lot of friends that do that every day. So that was always my goal since I was a kid. So kind of every step along the way, I made to being a college basketball coach and eventually be a head prep school coach. Yeah. And so everything I did, even though I had a goal and aspiration to play in the NBA, that's really hard to get there. So kind of every step I made from once I became 16 years old until obviously finished playing in college. During the summer, I would spend time at camps and go work camps. And everything I did was, based on reaching that goal. So
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So what's a memorable moment from your coaching journey that shaped how you decided you wanted to lead?
Yeah, I think you learn a little bit from everybody you work for and every experience. Even at this age, we're very fortunate. We had 3 guys from the NBA on campus the last 2 days. And I think, any coach, whether it's Rick Pitino doing it in his 70s or a guy that's 20, you can always learn. And obviously you got to evolve with the game and the players. But I just remember when I worked for Coach Keats, he's now the head coach at NC State at Hargrave for 3 years, and just how he was in the gym every day and his passion. And obviously we had a lot of success. We're 82-7 in 3 years, and a lot of good players, but it was just how he handled the guys, how he handled himself, and that just kind of led me, I knew I was doing what I wanted to do. Because everybody, when you take your first job out of college, you have aspiration. Once you get involved in coaching, right, you're doing laundry and you're traveling and you're doing bus schedules and do all this stuff. You're like, is this something you truly want to do? But I think watching him, that kind of molded me. And I think a lot of ways I was like him, seeing him sit in front of parents and give a vision to a kid and a family. And then obviously us follow through and help them guys get there, which is special. And that's something I enjoy about prep school, is actually being able to spend time with the kid and at the high school age and help them be ready for college and eventually, some guys to the NBA.
Yeah. And whenever you first started, coaching and leadership, was there anything that you had to adjust, learning from your mistakes? And for young coaches or young people in leadership, just to encourage them that everybody has to learn through mistakes.
100%. And I think you have to evolve. I think our kids are evolving. I think our society's evolving. When I was a player at Hargrave, I'm going to show my age, but we basically had payphones, right? And now these kids have everything, at their hands and access to that. So just the educational piece. I think everybody, when I was young, I just wanted to coach a certain way, and I tried to evolve. Every kid's a little bit different, and you reach everybody a little bit different. And even though as a coach, you treat everybody with the same standards, everybody, has a little bit different trigger point, I say, and everybody, some guys you can motivate different than other guys, and some guys need a little bit more encouragement, and some guys less. And I think it's our job to get the most out of every player, right?
Yeah.
The kid and the family and trust in us, coming across the country or maybe moving to Branson. So how do we help them all reach their potential, obviously in the team concept? And I think as I've grown, there's not just one way all the time, in every situation, every team, every player is a little bit different, and trying to, connect with the kid and the family and kind of do more research coming in. I think that's something I've really tried to evolve in coaching, and our society has changed, right? These guys, there's a lot more pressure when we go play in the TOC or big events. There's 75 cameramen on every baseline and social media and all that stuff. So how do we kind of help them with those things that I didn't have a challenge as a player, growing up? So.
Yes, because that is it. There is so much more pressure. What I was telling you earlier about somebody who made a mistake, and how many phones recorded that?
Yes.
Where is that? There is so much pressure. So I'm glad that you kind of, made a point for that. But I also really appreciate that you said, how do you motivate each player differently according to how they are motivated? And I really appreciate that you recognize that we need to get to know each player and talk to them in a way that is unique to them. And I think that is so good, because it's missed a lot. I have seen it before where this kid is not going to be motivated by you talking to them in this way. And to acknowledge that each player is unique and giving them the ability to motivate them and reach their potential and invest in them in that way. That takes time to get to know each player that way. It takes time to also speak to them and motivate them in the way that is going to work for them. And I think that already says a lot about you and the investment that you put into players, because that is not an across the board thing. I wish it was. I wish it was, but that's not. So I think that already speaks volume about the investment that you put into your players. How do you help your players? Speaking of that, the investment in them, how do you help them not only become better athletes, but better individuals off the court?
I think it's just like the coaching in basketball. I think it's time, and then, they see what we do every day, right? So, we try to bring in outside people to talk to them. Last night, for instance, we had a couple people from the NBA here, and I just wanted them to talk to the guys. They asked me what value they could bring, and I said, we've talked about ball screen defense and offense, and that's all great, but, just tell these guys, how important it is to represent your community, and, a locker room guy, and doing all the right stuff, and the value of all those things. So I think the biggest thing is we try to bring in outside people. I try to bring in former players that were college players, NBA players, to share their experiences. I had a guy just formerly, Tyrese Martin, just got a contract with the Nets for 2 years, and they talked about, how he handles himself and how he's a professional, and all those things. And I think, so we try to invest in that. We try to invest, now they're all got NIL contracts, and there's money in this, and all of our players are going to high major schools. So we bring in outside people that talk about finances, and obviously if you're getting this money, you're getting taxed. And just, so I think, you build those relationships and you help them with information and people that have information. And then the time we spend, not just on the court working on their game, but also in a classroom setting or in a locker room setting, obviously, to give them information that's going to prepare them for the next step in their lives.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm kind of a believer in how you handle yourself on the bench is more important than how you handle yourself on the court, because in my eyes, how you're able to handle yourself when things aren't going your way really shows me more about you than when it is going your way. And that's just not an athlete perspective. In general, that is how I feel. But I also know that high schoolers are learning to regulate their emotions. They're learning. They need a lot of grace in that. I'm well aware. But what would you say? Like because, we're talking about investing in them to become better individuals off the court. Like, what would you say if any players are listening right now? How could you encourage them or help them or give them a tidbit how to manage their emotions? It's hard. Like I get it. Hormones are all the things. and we also know that there's peer pressure, all the things. Like, please let me normalize that. But also from a coach's perspective, how would you help them become a better teammate when they're frustrated?
I think it's on both of us. I think it's players and coaches. We beat Sunrise the other weekend, and the clip that I showed our guys instead of like a shot was actually two of our guys that don't play as many minutes. Both of them are younger in our program. We're the first two guys to cross half court and celebrate for their teammates, So I think some of that is like us as adults, showing them like the things that matter, because I think our society just shows certain things, and they think if they're not the person getting the shot or making the dunk, then they don't bring value, right? And especially when you have younger kids in your program, like the work that they put in every day, and even if it's the scout team or the scouting report, and eventually if you have managers in your program, whatever else, like everybody has value. And I think it's some of us as adults, we have to highlight those things. And I think kids are watching, they see what's important. And unfortunately on ESPN every night on the top 10, they show the dunk and the shot. They don't show those things. So I think us as adults, we can help them, see what really matters. And I think they have to understand that there's always people, just like you said, like people are watching, and every day to our guys, I tell them it's a job interview. You don't know who's going to walk in the gym. And it could be a college coach, and now in our world of the transfer portal, and we have a lot of Division I schools coming all fall. Like, they might not be recruiting you, but in a year from now you might be moving, or that coach might be moving, and it's a change, and there's always eyes on you, and if we're playing in the TOC, you don't know which 10,000 people are sitting in those seats, and eventually that person might give you a job, off the court out of basketball. So we just try to stress those things, and then we try to highlight, the things that guys do that, don't involve them scoring a basket, and how important that is. And we try to bring it up weekly, and almost daily at times, the importance of everybody and being about the right things. And I think it's very telling too, like you said, you also see it sometimes when a team wins and certain guys aren't excited because they've been taught, like, hey, if it's not about you, and it's a team sport, and that's what helps us all interact in the future. Like, no matter if you go into business or you want to work in basketball or you're playing, you got to be able to work with others. That's part of like team sports, not just basketball, but everything that has value. So I think it's our job, obviously, as adults too, to highlight those things and us to pinpoint them and obviously show the guys and then reward them for the actions that are appropriate, instead of just, I think we all get caught up in, hey, this is not good and this is bad, but no, like sometimes show like the good stuff that they do, and having a good attitude, and the bench standing up, when a guy makes a shot, and showing all those things, I think help the culture. So.
No, I like that. And I like how you said, looking at it as every, this is like as a job interview, like who's watching you. I think that is really good perspective. I also, agree that the coaches play a lot of part in how the attitude can also be, how you're motivating them, how you're, so I agree that it is twofold. Also having, being at games all the time, my son's in games and everything. And so I appreciate that you said that it's always a question, because it is, they're going through a lot, they're navigating a lot, but they're also getting to be young adults. And so at some point they're going to have to, learn to manage it,
Exactly,
So anyway, okay. How do you foster a team culture that encourages both personal and athletic growth? So individually, we just talked about individually. How do you foster a team culture? It is very easy and I don't want to say absolutes. I don't want to see every team, but it is easy for high schoolers to compete against each other.
Yes.
How do you keep that? How do you foster that team growth, team spirit, so that they're not competing amongst each other and they're unified?
Yeah. So I think that's the hardest thing for my job at Link, just because we don't get like the central or the park view of the Knicks, so these kids don't grow up together. And the reality is that we have a goal to win a national title and obviously win Bass Pro and a conference tournament and all that, but they're all here because individually they think it's going to help them, get to the next level or be better. And so I think one is we have to obviously realize that as a staff, and then every single day we have to kind of like work on the culture. And I think it's just, it's not easy, right? And that's in the society and the world that we live in. It's hard at every level. I looked yesterday and I think there was a stat that the top 10 preseason college basketball teams, 5 of them aren't even ranked, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with the camaraderie in the team, because it's not a talent. Like, you get ranked preseason based off your talent, and then obviously being able to win games. You got to stay healthy and all that stuff, but a lot of it has to do with your team chemistry and working with others. So I think it kind of goes back to the same point. Like, we really talk about in basketball, just in like a technical standpoint, is like making the right basketball play. So if it's the right pass, it's the right shot, rewarding guys for that. What's going to get you on the floor. We try to show them a lot of stats of like college teams and NBA teams and just how much efficiency matters, to where you guys are trying to get to. So we try to give them the statistical details, like obviously that the levels they want to get to, and it's not about just scoring 30 points or taking all the shots. So that plays a huge impact, showing them how efficiency will help them get to where they want to be. And then we try to do a lot off the court. Now, the advantage we have is our guys live together side by side basically every single day. So on the weekends, I have them to my house. We like eat and watch games. We take them to Silver Dollar City. We take them to the Landing, and try to create like environments where they can be kids, but also bond. The same thing with all of our travels. We go out to eat dinner on the road, or like let them go to different stuff on the road. We were in Vegas. It was a really cool deal. NBA Cup. They got to go to the NBA game together. So they just get a chance to spend time together. And I think that creates a bond, because they're together 24 hours a day for 8 months, basically the year, outside of a couple little breaks. So I think that helps some, but we have to create some environment, and then I want them to have some environment where they're actually, eventually they're doing that themselves. They're going to the gym themselves. So I think all those aspects attribute, and I think some of it is you have to be able to recruit selfless players, and you need good leadership, and you need guys to hold each other accountable. And they always say like a coach-led team can be good, but like a player-led team can be great. So I think some of that, having great leaders in the locker room that are about the same thing we are, about winning and making the play and competing and becoming better every day, help that as well. So
okay, just side question. Do you think attitude or ability? What do you think is most important?
That's a great question. So I think you have to have ability to get to a certain level. Yeah. But I think your basically attitude and preparation is the difference maker. And I think there's all different levels. I mean, we'll have guys in our gym that are high major players talent-wise. But maybe when it gets down to like the NBA, all 5 of the guys in the workout are all talented enough to be there. And the effort, the detail, the attitude might separate the guy that makes it and the other 4 that don't. So I think the talent is like your floor, right? And then the ceiling is the attitude and like who you are with that. And you see that a lot. Like, there's guys that sometimes we see in every sport that make mistakes, and they have great talent, and their talent allows them to stay, but they never reach their full potential. Like, the greats normally have both. Like, they have a great attitude, a great work ethic, and then obviously they have the talent, or they couldn't even get the opportunity to be there.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, what is the most important life lesson basketball has taught you, and how do you pass that on to your players?
I've just always thought like hard work, and you can always outwork your talent, and to me that's where it kind of like the measurable. Like, I mean, I was a really good Division II college player, and I was probably talented enough to be a good high school player, but I just felt like I worked harder than pretty much everybody else. I was in the gym 6-7 hours a day, and waking up, going at 6 a.m., staying at late at the YMCA at night, all night, and that was just kind of what I lived to do. And then same thing in coaching. When I took some jobs, they didn't think we were going to be that good, but I just say I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive 3 hours to go recruit and get back at 2 a.m. And that's what I want these guys to leave, here with, is like just like a work ethic. Like, and everybody gets tired. Everybody has days they don't feel like they want to like do stuff. And I think that's the separator in life, is like people that kind of fight through that and, go to the gym and work out when they don't feel like it, right? And we all have days that like you feel really good and it's sunny outside and 75 and want to go, but like what are you on? Like you said, kind of like the attitude, like when it's 20 and you're not feeling good and you got the sniffles, like can you still find a way to go and get something out of that that day and be productive. And to me, that's what I want these guys to instill. And that's why we try to, stay consistent. And we do something almost every day basketball-wise. And I think that's kind of the separator when you get to that level. Like, what is your work ethic and what is your drive? And I think with that, like, competitive nature, like, to me, that's the biggest thing, whether we're playing ping pong or whatever else. Like, I think in life, you're always competing for something. Like, maybe for them, it's minutes. Maybe one day it's a job. Like, so I want them to leave with, like, a great work ethic and then a competitive nature. So
no, I do think sports in general really does that and instills that. And I think that's good. Daniel, my husband, he always says he's able to get yelled at because of basketball.
It's true to that.
He's like, I can get yelled at because I got yelled at like all the time, because he's like old school best. Like we're older. That's like when coaches could really yell at him and say whatever they wanted.
I do think that has a lot to do with like sensitivity, like in jobs. Like I've had bosses and everybody handles you a little bit different, right? And when you get to be an adult, it's not the same thing as maybe motivating your players. Like a lot of people have a certain style and you're adults, and if that guy yelled at me or somebody said something I didn't do right, like I wasn't sensitive and just went and did it, because I think you use that as a kid. And it was when I was playing, it was the Bob Knight era probably. He was and everybody coached you the same way and everybody yelled at you, and it was just so I do think that created like a toughness if you didn't have it outside
like a
of
thick
that,
skin.
So.
I always say like the people who have the thickest skin are the refs. Like if you need thick skin, you just need to go be a ref. That's what you need to do.
That's what the refs say. Ref my games definitely say.
Yes. Okay. So in what ways do you encourage players to stay motivated through difficult seasons or tough losses?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we said. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs in life. Like we had some difficult times this year. We win the Bass Pro and we're on cloud nine and everything's going good. And we go to Miami and we had beat Columbus once and they're number one in the country. And Amari Bonham's been one of our most consistent players, and he fractures a bone in his hand and he's out, So then we got to go on Monday and play at IMG. So it's a tough stretch because of our schedule, the teams that we're playing. And then we had lost the game, and then we were going to play Sunrise. And I wrote on the board, I said, you have two options. Like option one is like you can fight through it and you can really like we'll try to break through this. And we got Sunrise and Montverde coming up. And option two is you can quit. Like everybody can quit in life, And to me, that's like, if you do that, that's kind of who you become, And that's just my belief is like, there's always going to be something we can quit on. We can quit on a drill. We can quit on like whatever your goal is, and, a game, a season, all that stuff. So I think, being able to break through stuff. And nobody really goes undefeated anymore. Nobody makes every shot. So there's going to be ups and downs. Sometimes they're worse. And I think that carries over to life as adults. Like not every day's perfect, and, not every job, everything I get, everything I want every day, but being able to fight through those things, especially learning those as, adolescence and tough times, and knowing there's going to be more coming ahead is a skill. And that's what we kind of encourage them is like, hey, like guys, 2 weeks ago we were on a high. Now we might be today on a low, but this is really going to show like who we are, in this time of adversity. And obviously we're going to have our faith and our beliefs and all that stuff. And then we're just going to trust in that and, go from there. So.
Yeah. Okay. When there is a low, like maybe for an individual player, and they're in their head, and I don't know if you see it on your team as much, but when they're in their head and they're taking themselves out of the game because they're worried that, I don't know, about the future instead of just worrying about the moment. What would you say to those players who get in their head a lot and take themselves out of the game instead of just taking it, okay, I'm not going to think about that right now. I'm just going to keep moving on. Like what's a mindset piece?
So I think there's two. So there's like obviously in the moment. So if you're in like the second quarter and you got to finish the game, that's, you just got to, I think you got to trust in like, it kind of goes back to both, but you got to trust in like the work that you done, and whether it's a shooting slump, and if you've shot a million shots, then you got to have true belief, that hey, the next shot I'm going to shoot, as long as it's a good shot my coach wants me to shoot, it's going to go in. But I think you get that, like if you're in a slump and it's during a season, and let's say you play a Tuesday, Friday game, going back, sometimes it's going back and locking yourself in the gym by yourself, or going back in there and getting extra work. I think the misconception sometimes is just like, hey, it's going to be better on Friday than it was on Tuesday just because it's Friday, you know? And I think you got to get back, whether it's, watching film, like some guys might be, hey, I got to go to like Silver Dollar City and just get away for an hour. Everybody's got their own thing that kind of helps them reset. For me as a player, and I think for most players, like, especially if you're in a shooting slump. That's a big thing in basketball, is that like, getting back in the gym and seeing a bunch of shots go in and, coming in early, staying late. I've had players that even like, they have a bad game and they cut the lights back on 30 minutes after everybody leaves the gym and get up shots, and just kind of like get in there and just think how you were as like a kid, right? Like as a little kid, I was in here shooting, there was no pressure and there was nothing going on. And when you start seeing them go in and you start feeling confident again, I think then obviously it'll translate to the next game. But to me, that's the best way, is just kind of like get lost back in the moment of being in the gym, especially if you're like in a shooting slump or a playing slump. And then, same thing with practice, like, you got to get back, and when you have a bad game, you got to get back and have like a good practice. And to me, it's just like you kind of get your belief in like what you're doing by the work you put in. And there's so much work done before the season, and some people, hey, like the season's here and I'm just gonna like all of a sudden make shots. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. You got to put in the time and effort and energy, and then we all go through slumps. I mean, the best shooters and players in the world. So I think it's just getting back in there and getting in the rhythm, and maybe it's going in the gym with your friend, maybe it's going in the gym with your dad, whoever's kind of been around you, like kind of surrounding yourself with those people, and then getting your confidence back. So
yeah, that was good. How do you balance winning with developing the character and well-being of your players? So how do you balance the competition with the individual?
So I think it can go hand in hand in some ways. I think a great life lesson in basketball and team sports is like winning is like normally it's everybody willing to give something that they wouldn't, and that's what it takes. Like there's going to have to be one guy that's going to set screens, one guy that's going to have to rebound. Maybe you got to guard the best team's player. And I think those are things that carry on in life. Now, obviously in winning, some people don't always get the same amount of shots, right? And the same amount of development. So there's like a catch-22. And I was just talking to the guys in the NBA about this, is like, giving guys freedom in practice and allowing them to make mistakes. And then there's between maybe in practice and in the game, right? Because in the game, there's the goal and your team's got to win and there's certain things you got to do. But in practice, or especially in like, we're fortunate we have night skill sessions to be able to put guys in uncomfortable situations to make passing decisions, ball screen decisions, defensive decisions, and guarding different people to help kind of build them and continue to get them better and realize that, hey, like we're working on this, we're building this, but like right now, this isn't what I do my best. So this might not be the best thing for the game, but outside of the game, this is something we continue to develop daily and work on. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand. Like I think in the game, obviously the goal of your team is to find a way to win. And then I think, but you have to have preparation like outside of the game too, where you're allowing guys to get better. And everybody wants individual development. I think that's part of getting guys to play for each other, is that I think it goes back to the same thing of spending time with them. So even like we might have practice and we might be, hey, we're going to do this on offense and defense, but at night we're coming back in here working on shooting and finishing and ball handling. So the kids actually feel that like you're spending time with them in their individual development. It's not just about you or just winning. Like, you're trying to help them outside of that as well too. Yeah.
I really like that you put them in an uncomfortable situation to help them learn how to work through that, to help them. I think that's something that can be done more, is learning. I think that's what all good leaders do, is they see where the people they're leading, their weak areas are, and give them an opportunity to work through it instead of just focusing on, oh, well, this is good, this is good, this is good. Let's just keep working on getting it better. It's like, wait, what about those? Like my opinion, like for some coaches, if you're not developing your bench players, I personally don't think you're a good coach. I'm like, if you're not developing the weakest people on your team, what are you even doing? Like you're just riding the coattails of your best players, So I love that you do that.
And I think that's like, as again, like, I mean, first of all, coach, even if you just wanted to win, like you don't know when somebody's going to sprain an ankle or hurt a wrist, or we've had a tendon in the finger this year, all kinds of stuff. So if we don't prepare those other guys, they obviously can't step in. And we talk about that a lot. It's always like next man up mentality, and it happens throughout the course of a season. And like you said, and I think we have to like put guys in tough. The best way to learn is through fire. That doesn't mean you have to throw them always in the game, but in practice, like, we got to put them in situations daily that they have to make tough plays and tough decisions, and one that prepares them for the game along with their development. And that's so important for like basketball and, making everybody. And I think that's what gets the buy-in, like I was saying, of the guys running off the bench and celebrating their teammates, because we're all invested every day, and the same guys are getting the same workouts and the same shots, and it's not about just one or two guys. It's about everybody getting better and valuing everybody in there and putting them in those situations. So.
No, I love that. I think that's great. Can you talk about the role of mentorship in your coaching style? And it's a little unique for you because you really have to be a mentor. So the way Link Academy works is these players live on campus. I mean, it's you are their mentor. You are their mentor. So these kids aren't able to go home that night to their family, their parents. So I am actually interested, for mentorship, you do kind of have that weight a little more than a typical coach. So what is your role of mentorship in your coaching?
Yeah, I think that's why we try to do so much off the court meetings with not only just myself, and these guys probably get tired of hearing me talk a lot, but I try to find information for them all the time. So if I find something on Twitter from a college coach, an NBA player, something that's relative, like we'll watch our film before practice on offense and defense, but then, at night when we do, before we do skill work, I always try to bring them in and share messages with them.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, obviously we're truly invested, and I'm on them about wearing what you're supposed to wear, going to bed, your habits, every single day, but also they need to hear from different voices. So I think as a mentor, to me, that's the most important thing, having them ready for the next step in their life. And they all of our guys are fortunate they'll go play college basketball at some level, and that's not just making a shot on Tuesday in a conference game, right? It's being able to get to class on time, being able to get to your tutor on time. How do you talk to people on campus? Your impression when you shake somebody's hand, all those things. So I actually, I just basically self-text myself, all these videos, and I have a whole library. Yeah. And I try to use that because it's coming from whether it's Coach K or it's LeBron or there's somebody else that is addressing the same message I am, instead of me just standing up there saying it. Yeah. I show, because the reality is it means more for them, right? It's just the truth. They're going to listen and say, hey, that's LeBron, so he said it. And so I try to take those messages and I try to share with a couple times throughout a week, because I do think we're an impact in their life, and I think they're a reflection of me and our program. What they do at the next level reflects all of us too. And it's kind of it's like a kid or a parent, like you said. We're the adults around them every single day, and how they act, how they behave, how they get to class on time when they get to the next level. Do they show up to the training room? Do they practice hard every day? Are they just good citizens on campus? For us, obviously Lincoln's a huge faith-based place. Do they go to the FCA? Are they leaders for their faith on campus? All those things matter for us, and we want them to be an example, obviously, when they go to the next step. And then selfishly, that helps us recruit, because people realize the time and investment we have, so that'll have them go back and say good things about us, obviously me and the program, because we spend that time trying to help them, not just on their basketball skills, but all kinds of life lessons.
No, that's good. So, all right, what advice? Well, actually, I'm going to ask this in just a minute. How do you handle the pressure and expectations within your team, but externally, like fans and parents? Again, just like with there's a little more weight for you than a typical high school coach, because you are Link Academy, and you don't have local players. You have NBA players' children. So how do you handle the expectations and that pressure? How do you handle that? And I really am excited to hear what you have to say, because there is a lot more pressure, I would think. I'm not saying there is. I'm not going to answer for you. But I would think there is. And so I think anybody local coach, a new local coach, I really feel like this is something that you guys can really learn from on how to handle and things like that.
I came to the realization a long time ago, when we lose, it's my fault. When we win, our guys play good, right? No, I think there is definitely more pressure. One is, it's a good thing, but the success they had the first 3 years obviously put more pressure, put us in a national spotlight. I joked, but at the Bass Pro, everybody talked about our first time that we won it, and I said, well, I guess I can't mess this up, right? That's all they talked about. Every interview we did in the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is how they had won it with Elliot Cadeau and those guys. But now it's a good thing for our program and me, because obviously it helps us continue to recruit in the success. But it is like being at in high school basketball, Duke or Kansas or somewhere. So the expectations are different. They don't just expect us to win a couple games. They expect us to win every game. And obviously we're playing a national schedule against other best teams in the country. But I think you just got to kind of get lost in what you're doing. I think that's the most important thing. I could worry about everything else, and it would take my focus away from our next game. We have a home game for senior night, and then we play Arizona Compass in the conference tournament. I got to kind of get lost in what's the preparation of how we're going to beat Arizona Compass in the conference tournament, and then not worry about that. So that's easier said than done, because of course when you lose, you're thinking, hey, we haven't lost this game, we hadn't done this, and then it was the same thing. We had an injury, and then we beat Sunrise, and we're going to play Montverde. Well, in like the program history, we had never beat Montverde, so there's as much success as we had. That was a huge game for us, and we're out 2 of our players, one going to Ohio State, one going to Texas. So I could just be, hey, this is, feel sorry for myself, but instead, it's how do we just find a way to try to win this game and get our guys ready, and that kind of takes out all the external pressure for me. And I just try to do that by just kind of getting lost in like trying to make the guys better, prepare them more, worry about what we're doing and what we can control. You can't control the outside world, you can't control everybody's opinion, but I think you can sleep at night if you know that every single day you go in there and you try to give your team and the organization the best you have every day, and like I try to show up every day early and stay late and do whatever I can to help our guys be prepared. And obviously same thing, I'm sitting on my couch at night, watching film and tweeting stuff to myself and everything else. So it's just like, I think that's kind of how I try to handle the pressure, is just getting lost in like what we're trying to accomplish the next day in the next game, and then obviously the end result will take care of itself. And I feel like if you do that, then you'll get what you want, and then if not, you can obviously sleep at night and rest with yourself and know that you gave it the best you had every single day.
And so handling pressure and handling losses and all that, all of the things that come with it, do you feel like that's really grown and evolved over the years for younger coaches who are listening, just to kind of encourage them that some things are developed over time, and to give themselves grace, I don't
know if I handle losses any better. But I think it's all relative. Like, I've been fortunate to be really successful everywhere I've been, and obviously it afforded me this opportunity, but I think it's just I think that's part of, for me, and I know there's like Dan Hurley, see Bill, some of these guys, it's like that's the competitive nature that makes you good, and hopefully you can sustain that, is because like every game matters to you and to me. And I think I watched the show, and Dan Hurley's wife said, hey, like, I'm just a glorified gym teacher, and it was like a big joke, right? And obviously he's not, they won 2 national titles, but to us it's like, it's important, like, and it's got to matter to you, and you're only going to be successful in life if you like what you're doing matters to you. But I think I've tried to evolve as a coach, like handling like our players and just kind of like how I react to it and respond. And I would probably go on longer like locker room rants now, try to like really like reflect and like watch the tape and like make sure I have the right information. So I try to grow in that, measure, like it's not letting our guys know that that's in the world, and like how we're going to grow from this and how we're going to get better and respond and all those kind of things. But I think as a coach, you still take them hard. I think it's just part of the competitive nature that I like and in sports. And I want them to have pride in what we're doing, but also sometimes it's just uncontrollable. Sometimes you might play as hard as you can, and you might just miss shots that night, and you might get everything that you tried to do, but the shots didn't go in. So I think talking to them about that too, like, hey guys, like, our effort was tremendous tonight. Like, we did this, we just didn't make a play when it mattered, or we missed a shot, or all those things. And so we just got to stay the course, and if we keep doing this, then obviously we'll get the result we want at the end. And just kind of the same thing, like stay like lost in kind of the moment and like the goal of the team. So
that's good. Okay, so what advice would you give to young coaches just starting out in their careers? What is just a couple nuggets that you think would be the things that are the most important takeaways in their careers starting out?
I think the biggest thing in anything you do, and I think it's twofold, no matter what your goal is in coaching, I think it's a relationship business. One is obviously with your players, is probably the most important, the guys in front of you. And then in my situation, I wanted to be a college coach. It was the same thing. It was about building relationships. And I would say like true relationships of guys that you actually like value and you spend time with and help you kind of get to the next goal, and tell you the truth even. I have people that tell me the truth. Like when something's not going good, you need people, and like everybody tells you what you want to hear sometimes, especially when things are going good, but you need some people that you trust and can actually tell you the truth. And maybe, I don't know if it's humble you or what, or just give you like, I heard somebody say, having people that tell you the truth are the most important thing. And one guy said his wife gives him his Wheaties every morning, right? Because she owns them every morning. And so I think that's huge, having a circle of people that like tell you the truth. And then I think you just have to work through it, and you got to be yourself. Like you'll see some coaches, even in just game coaching styles, like they might sit on the bench and not say anything, and you see some guys like, I can't sit down, like I go up and down the sideline the whole game, and that's just like who I am. And I think you have to be comfortable with like who you are, and how you want to coach. And then you got to find the same thing if it's schematically, and hey, this is offense, defense, you got to believe in like what you're telling your guys and not just get it kind of off the internet, and because there's so much out there for us to watch and see. But I think to teach something, you got to be truly a believer of what you're teaching teaching and showing them, whether that's like a skill or shooting or ball handling, or it's an offensive and defensive, set or play. And then you got to invest time in that. And I think if you do that, then the guys will believe in you because they know if you truly believe like what you're telling them. Like you can see, I think it's a passion. So I think those are all the most important thing. And then just got to work really hard and spend time with people. Like, kids are watching, the kids, they change in different eras and all that stuff, but like they know if you're invested. Like one of the biggest things that I say all the time for young guys and even trainers is like kids know if you're doing it just when it's on Instagram or if you're truly in there when there's no cameras and there's people watching, is they're actually invested in their future. To me, that's the most important. You touched on it earlier. Like if a kid's playing bad and you want to be a coach, like are you going to grab that guy and get him back in the gym? Like it's easy to get in there with the guy that's making all the shots and that looks cool. But where's the value? As an assistant coach, your job is to kind of, bring those other guys along all the time. Sometimes your head coach might yell at guys, so you got to be the guy to pick them up. And sometimes you might have to be so you got to kind of play that role too when you get in the business. So
yeah, that's good. What is your approach to building confidence in players? So we talked a little bit about, you could be on having a hard time, just a bad shooting streak for a little bit, getting in, but what are some things you do to build confidence when they are struggling outside of getting them back into practice and rhythm and repetition? Like what's a mental piece to instill?
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of what you hit on is like we do like everything we do offensively, we do in skill work too. So hopefully it breeds confidence in our guys. And I think there's just touch points. Like if a guy's struggling and he's taking good shots and you have to say, hey, we believe in you to shoot that. You got to keep shooting it. I saw it was very impactful. I think it was probably 9 years ago. De'Aaron Fox was at Kentucky and I had a couple guys that played for me at Ole Miss. So I was watching Kentucky shoot around and he had went through a slump. And they had a really good team. They had Malik Monk and Bam and all these guys that played in the NBA, but he wasn't shooting the ball. And he's one of the best players in the NBA now and one of the best players in college basketball. And Calipari just kind of stopped practice and said, hey, we want you to make 3 in a row. And he had the whole team stand there and watch him. And then when he made it, he was like, look, we believe in you. We're all behind you. We're supporting you. So I think that has a big impact, but I think also he could have done that without the shooting. I think him just, us sharing that with guys like, hey, that's a good shot. I've seen you in here every night working on that. Like, I'm good with this. And we chart all our shots and tracker. So we'll bring guys in and show them film like, hey, this is a great shot. Like this, we want you to shoot this 10 out of 10 times. And that's still kind of like getting involved in the basketball piece, but I think it's just sharing like the belief with them. And then you can see when a guy's down, like for us, it's hotel lobbies, it's, walking to the mall, whatever else. So I think it's just grabbing them and saying, having like a vote of confidence in them and sharing that with them. And sometimes that's even without me doing it, telling like my assistant, or maybe we have a great leader as a point guard, like, hey, you need to go talk to player A and tell them like, we want them to keep shooting those shots. You got to kind of talk to them outside because it's, player to player and it's different than, coach to player sometimes. So I think even finding other guys that they have a relationship with to go talk to them as well too. And I think you have to see that as a coach, like, when guys are up and down and struggling and how do we get them back? Now we can't let them like completely not be accountable, but there's a difference between, struggling and giving effort and doing that and then, not giving effort. So.
Do you think, because I've seen, I have 3 kids, all 3 in basketball, and I can't gosh, I don't even know how many years that they've been in basketball now, but what's your thought on like shooting a shot, it not going in? It's not a great shot. What's your thought on, is that a bad shot? Or do they, because it varies amongst coaches. It does. Some will go, no, you keep shooting. Or that's a bad shot. Why would you do that? And then like, what's your thoughts on that?
So I don't think his shots are equal opportunity. So I coach Cam Thomas in AAU. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. So like Cam Thomas's shot was not the same for everybody else. I think that's one of the hardest things for basketball players to understand. And it's not because it was Cam Thomas. It was because when we were at Peach Jam, Cam Thomas would go shoot 100 fadeaways every day before we played. So he had perfected that shot. And I think that's one of the hardest things for guys to understand and realize is, to me, just because I'm player A and you're player B, like, and that's not the same shot for me as it is you, because I've shot 7 million of those in my life and I can make that an efficient percentage. You haven't shot 2 of those, so this isn't like just shoot it today and it's not a good shot. And then some of that's obviously drastic. Like you'll see a shot, and I could see it as a fan and be like, oh, that's not a good shot because it's contested, but that guy might make 80% of those contested shots. that's a good shot for him. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing to get kids to understand. And it's not personal. It's just that this guy works on this shot and he's invested the time and he's invested energy. So that's probably a better shot for him than it might be player B. So that's my biggest thing on shot selection is like, we want our guys to shoot shots that they work on every day. So if you work on fadeaways every single day from 15 feet and you can make them at a consistent level, like I'll lead the cheers, but you can't just take that shot and you've never done it and all of a sudden you get in the game and you shoot that shot, So to me, that's kind of how we, manage like shot selection. Everybody's a little bit different. Every player's a little bit different, but it's really about the time you put in, taking that shot. And I think it's the same thing. We live in an environment now. I was talking to the biggest about this, about like there's trainers and you go to trainers and everybody teaches the guy to shoot the exact same way. Well, if you really watch basketball, nobody shoots the exact same way. There's a couple, and it's as simple as like some guys can get to lane and shoot floaters. Some guys do 1, some guys do 2 feet. It depends on whatever it is. To me, I call it like having a solution when you get there. Like when you get to 10 feet, like what's your shot? And whatever your shot is, and you need to shoot hundreds of those reps, weekly, daily. When I was in New Mexico State, we would bring in our guards and I would just have them, hey, this is the spot you're going to get to, and just shoot the same shot 10 times in a row before the game, just kind of as a warm up. And those are just the kind of things I think. So everything's a little bit different, but I think it's really based on like what you can make and what you put the time in and worked on. So
that's good. I really appreciate the perspective. I think it's, and I said this before with the other coaches, everybody's asked the same questions. I mean, some add-in questions are different, that add in, but everybody gives a different response, but they're all good responses. And I love that because it's such good perspective. And I've said this before. I mean, really, you can put all of this and just make a huge tool belt for like a young coach listening. Every single one of you have just said great things. And it's just this massive tool belt. I hope people utilize what you guys, because I love it. I mean, coaching, it parallels into all leadership. It's not just the X's and O's. Like there's so much. Anyway, I'm going to ask you, and then we'll kind of finish up. What legacy do you hope to leave behind as a coach, both on and off the court?
And I always go back and forth. Obviously, as a coach, you're like, I get caught up in like chasing wins and championships and all that stuff. Right? That's just part of like competitive nature. But to me, I think the most gratitude and like the most value that I get, and probably like, I don't know if it'd be the most emotional, whatever it is like when former players are successful. And you can feel that, right? Like you can't measure that, but you can feel where like you're almost emotional when a guy goes somewhere and he's successful and you see it work for him. And sometimes I even feel that for like guys that like in the profession, like, if like last year, Coach Keats made it to the Final Four at NC State, to me, that was like I was with him every day when he was putting in time at Hargrave. And, we had a small gym in Chatham, Virginia, and a lot of good players, and like he had a lot of success, but it was like all of a sudden then get a chance to coach in front of 75,000 people at the Final Four. And then the same thing is like, we coached Luke Hancock when we were there, and he was MVP of the Final Four. He does ESPN TV and stuff now. He was a Division III player when I started working him out, and then he obviously grew into being a really good player and a scorer. To Frank Mason, like that went to Kansas, and nobody recruited him, and he was National College Player of the Year. So to me, hopefully, that's like the impact of the legacy is like, the time that we spent in helping guys get to their dream, and you kind of get remembered by that. Now, everybody, I would like to win 20 national titles in the next 20 years. That'd be an unbelievable legacy, but I think it's more about like us helping people reach their dream. I'm probably more passionate about than that, and everything. And that's how I try to coach our guys every single day. Like, and I try to get information, ask like what's important and efficiency in those. And that's what I try to coach them on every single day is like, how do we prepare them to be successful at the next level? And I don't have all the answers, but that's why I try to do so much research. But we have access to like a lot of people that do, and a lot of people coming through our gym. So like I ask those guys, whether it's college or NBA head coaches, and what are you guys looking for? How do we help prepare these guys? And when a couple guys left today, I just said, what can we do better? Like how can we prepare them more? Like, what do you see missing when guys get to like the highest level of the NBA? So hopefully that's the legacy, is that like I've helped a lot of people get to like what their dream or goal was, because people helped me get there. So hopefully that's what you can look back and see a whole line of people that we played a little part in helping them get to where they wanted to be. So.
Yeah, that's really good. Chad, I appreciate everything that you have said. I think it's great perspective. I appreciate the investment, the obvious investment that you put into your players, beyond what I think a lot of people even expect, the individual investment you put in them. And I appreciate that you took the time to come on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So hopefully this will help. I love being here. And I'm going to watch all the other podcasts now.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's good.